Yeah, the bad news is our otherworldly quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, from all appearances, he was just way more inaccurate than he normally is. The good news is...
The blunt question I just have to ask you, is the Mahomes Magic gone? So through 3 games of the 2024 season, the Chiefs offense is middle of the pack and even below average in several key statistics. They are 22nd at scoring touchdowns in the red zone, 21st on converting third downs, 15th in yards per play, and 12th in passing yards per game. Then Patrick Mahomes has thrown 4 picks, tied for third most, is 28th in EPA, and the intermediate area of the field has the lowest depth of target among starting QBs, is second to last in his rate of throwing it 20 or more air yards, and has simply not looked himself out there on the football field. Well, in spite of that, this video should be an encouraging watch because not only will you see the Chiefs offense can easily be fixed, but even with their shortcomings on offense, they are still averaging 25 points per game through 3 weeks and can easily put up plenty more. So without further ado, let's get into this convo about the Chiefs offense. But first, how about those? What's up, everybody? I'm here once again with Seth Kaiser. We're going to talk about kind of how the Chiefs have been doing the last few weeks, maybe even last week in particular, but some of the questions that people have when you had reports all offseason long, the deep ball's back, the offense is going to be ticking again, and then after 3 weeks, the Chiefs are 3-0. Like, there's some great things there, one of the top seeds in the NFL, but you look at their offensive metrics, a lot of their stats, they're pretty middle of the pack in a lot of offensive statistics. Red zone percentage, they're below average. That's kind of a trend from last year. Mahomes has thrown 4 picks and 5 touchdowns. So there are some question marks, concerns. I think, though, you, Seth, are here to tell us that this is correctable and the sky is not falling. And that's what we're here to talk about today, as you've been looking through the game film, and we could definitely lead it off from here on where you want to start and jump right in.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wrote about following the Falcons game, the Bengals game, some of the issues they had on offense were relatively easy to explain. You had a couple of poor throws, one a poor decision, and then one an inaccurate throw on 2 picks. That killed a couple of drives. Then Carson Steele had an unfortunate fumble relatively early in a drive where they were moving the ball, though. So that's 3 drives that are just terminated right there. And then you also had Kingsley Suamataia have a really tough day against Hendrickson. When you combine those things, it's really explainable what happened to the offense when you look at that. Against Atlanta, it becomes a little more complicated. And one of the things that I try to do is really take a look at what we can see on film and figure out what's going wrong. With Atlanta, it's kind of an interesting thing because even though the offense was pretty anemic overall, they actually had a relatively high success rate, meaning they were moving the ball relatively effectively. And for non-nerds, success rate is simply a measurement of whether or not you made it more likely statistically that you were going to get a first down. It's a way of quantifying yards in a way that measures being actually effective moving the ball. Easy example, gaining 5 yards on 1st and 10, that's great because you've now opened up 2nd and 5. You've made it significantly more likely that you'll get a first down. Gaining 5 yards on 3rd and 10, that's not great. That's a net negative in helping you win games. So yards alone, of course, and even yards per play doesn't really measure it. Success rate does. And the Chiefs actually had a very high success rate against the Falcons, snap after snap. Now, their run success rate was like 70% to something ridiculous. So that helped. But they did, when you go back and rewatch the game and you kind of take the emotion out of it, which is something I always urge people to do, even if you're not looking at all 22, rewatching games, you see so much more because you're not freaking out. And that includes me. I freak out constantly during the game, but when you go back and rewatch, you can kind of see a few more things that are really going on once you've removed the emotion. So what I wanted to do was take a look. I had a bunch of people asking me about Andy Reid. I had a bunch of people asking me about the receivers, about the line, about Mahomes. Is it Matt Nagy? Is he spoiling the offense, etc.? And so I wanted to get into, what was really causing some of their problems. And what I found was, by and large, it was execution errors, not systemic errors, which is kind of a good news thing. The first thing that we could talk about, though, and this is, I see you pulling it up right now, and this is great. One of the only complaints that I would have about Andy Reid, one, he kicked a field goal on 4th and 2, pretty deep in enemy territory. I would love to see him go for it in that situation. Statistically speaking, whether you're talking analytics or the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes even on an off day, I'd like to see him more aggressive there. Second is some of the red zone stuff. And a lot of people have talked about this. So this is, let me just say something. As a football purist, I love this. This is This is football, man. This is like we aren't playing on Friday night, or we've traveled back in time 60 years, and it's incredible. It gets Leo on the field, who is maybe the pound for pound strongest guy on the team. There's nothing wrong inherently with running a little wishbone here and there. Here's what I don't like about doing this right on the goal line. And this is something that I do have a beef with Andy Reid. Like the cutesy stuff, I don't really care that much. It's actually successful more often than people realize. What I have a problem with is stacking the box. So what you see right here is, everyone's right at the line of scrimmage, and you've got three guys in the backfield. You've got an extra lineman. You've got Travis Kelce right on the line. The problem is that allows the Falcons to have every single defender right near the box, which means you need basically 10 blocks to be successful to run the ball well. If one of those blocks loses, you end up losing that rep, generally speaking, depending on what direction the run is going, but especially when it's right up the middle. Whereas if you go down a little bit, and this is all covered there in the newsletter if you want to read about it a little more in detail, or if you read really fast, you could just read it right now. This was their third down play that Judon did a great job blowing up. They ended up doing a little bit of play action, and Judon, rather than biting on the play fake to Pirine, he stays with Mahomes and is fast enough to chase him out of bounds. Rashee Rice gets open here. He gets open in the end zone. The problem is Mahomes is running for his life. It's not a great place to make the throw, and Judon actually runs him down from behind. Most guys can't do that. So he made a singularly great play. That's why this failed. Sometimes the other guys just win. But what I want people to take a look at here is look at how the Falcons defense is aligned. They're in 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, a running back, a tight end. Look at how much more spread out that is. Now you don't need 10 blocks to win. You need like 5 or 6 blocks to win, and you've got extra bodies to where you can run some of that duo and double team stuff up front. When you look at this alignment, you really could have, Creed and Tooney double team the right defensive tackle, have Morris kick out that defensive end, and then climb with Tooney to the second level on that linebacker that's right there. Or it's just Pirine versus that linebacker at the 1 yard line, both of them with momentum, and hopefully he can force his way in. It's so much easier to run the ball, and statistics bear this out, that you're more likely to score when you are spread out like this on the goal line, as opposed to just lining everyone up in the box. That's my biggest gripe with what Andy Reid did. And the good news I would tell Chiefs fans to take from that is, no, the NFL hasn't caught up to Andy Reid's offense, at least not on tape. And we're about to see why here in a second. No, there's not this systemic thing that's a problem with Matt Nagy, he somehow has wrested play calling out of the hands of Andy Reid or anything like that. I've heard a ton of fan theories about that over the years. First, it was when Doug Peterson left, and then the Magic was going to be gone with Eric Bieniemy instead. Then it was, the Magic's going to be gone when Eric Bieniemy leaves. It was when Matt Nagy leaves, because that 2017 season that suddenly Alex Smith is the best deep ball thrower in the league. What? That's weird. Well, then the Magic is going to be gone now with Eric Bieniemy. Well, then the Magic was going to be gone when he was gone. It's Andy Reid's offense. Always has been, always will be. Those guys are implementing his vision. They're implementing his offense and assisting at times with the calls in the games, but the design is his. It always has been, always will be. So the good news is the offense looks fine overall. Guys are getting open. It's not the same problems we saw last year in terms of guys who just couldn't get open or couldn't execute consistently. The bad news / good news, most of the problems were Mahomes against the Falcons. He just wasn't throwing the ball well. He was not being falsely modest when he said that he wasn't setting his feet and it was affecting his accuracy. And you could see it throughout the game. One of the best examples of a play that you don't really think about afterwards. So this is a 2nd and 8 that you're seeing up on the screen right now. Rashee Rice runs a whip route while you've got Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster basically clearing the zone coverage. You force that boundary defender to get some depth, right? Because he's got to follow Kelce. Otherwise, he's got a problem. That interior defender, the defender up the seam, he doesn't have the ability to catch up to a whip route here, because that route from Juju kind of freezes him in place, right? Here, Rice has space to get a first down, but when you look at where the placement of the ball is, he has to twist back for it and grab it. That halts his momentum towards the sideline, and he ends up getting tackled short of the sticks. The next play was 3rd and 2. That's when Pirine got stuffed at the line of scrimmage. That was actually a play where where Mahomes audibled into a different play, then out of a different play, then into a different play, and then the nose tackle just blew it up anyway, so it was much ado about nothing. This is an example, though, on a 2nd and 8 of a drive-killing play, even though it's not on 3rd down, because they should be working with 1st and et cetera, or 1st and 10, and the drive has an opportunity to keep going. Instead, they got put in a do-or-die situation. And this is why placement and accuracy is so important for yards after catch, because it can affect the way that your receiver moves after the catch, especially a guy like Rashee Rice. He hits him in stride there, and now you're cooking with gas. Whereas there, he just didn't. And if you look at his feet on the throw, if you pop that up again, his feet, when you see how Mahomes sets to make this throw, his feet are all over the place. They're very wide. It's kind of similar to the very first play of the game, where he's really not setting them up underneath him the way you would expect him to, and he's kind of rushing the throw and going all arm. That's exactly what he was talking about, and this was actually better than what his form was in a lot of throws throughout the game. So there were plays like that, and that wasn't the last time that he made a similar mistake that cost them dearly. This time it's 3rd down, and instead of Rice running a whip route, he's running a drag across the field. This is one, so I would chart this as a drop for Rice. He gets 2 hands on it. Yeah, he's got to twist back for it, but he should catch that. But it's a similar situation in that the ball placement does him absolutely no favors. It was almost a pick, honestly, because it bounced off his hands there. If you look, again, same basic problem in terms of the placement here is that he's running across the field and has to stretch all the way back to catch it while staying full speed. Again, that's catchable, but you look at how different Patrick's feet look here on this throw. You got the camera a little bit in the way. I mean, this time he doesn't even he squares up his body straight ahead like he's making some kind of shortstop type throw, I guess. But it's really bad footwork, and it affects his accuracy again. Imagine if that hits Rice in stride as he's heading towards the sideline. The only defender, because his defender got picked on this kind of mesh-like concept here, his defender had to go over the top of the rub route. And so he doesn't have anyone. And there's the deep safety is way far away. The boundary corner followed, I think it was Worthy up the field. There's no one there. If he catches that in stride, he eventually gets chased out of bounds, probably not till at least midfield. And knowing Rice, he might break that tackle. And it's a 20, 30-yard gain. Instead, he drops it. Now, that's on him. But it should have been a much better throw, especially given his speed. And so the defender coming over the top, he'll close. But, I mean, that's a one-on-one in space, and I take Rice 10 times out of 10 there. And because there was over a minute left and they still had at least a timeout left, maybe a couple, I can't recall, he has the ability to cut back inside, kind of do whatever he needs to do to maybe break a tackle, make a big play. Those types of things, they kill drives. And Mahomes had that happen to him far too often. His interception was, for one thing, Justin Simmons just made a really great break on the ball. They're showing, I think, some iteration of cover 3 here. And I always say I think because, I mean, it's the best you can tell. And because he breaks it off so quickly, it's hard to tell. But if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see Travis Kelce celebrating after he sees the boundary corner follow him, because he assumes that's the exact look they wanted. As soon as he sees that guy following him, he's like, oh, it's over, except it's not. Now, Simmons makes a great play. The problem from my perspective is that ball either needs to come out early and just scorching on a rope, or if he's going to wait until he does to throw it, that needs to get basically not lofted, because it still needs to be kind of on a rope, but you need to layer that over the top of that safety. Simmons, with as great a break as he made on this ball, still had to jump and reach up to catch it. 3 feet higher, he can't, and Gray can. It's an unfortunate, now it requires a great throw, but we've seen Mahomes make those great throws before. And once again, his feet, this is the third throw of Mahomes we've looked at. His feet look different again. Now, part of that, there was a protection breakdown here. Carson Steele definitely should have stayed back in pass pro here rather than leaking out. He should come across the formation. And I believe if you look before the snap, you can see Mahomes kind of setting things up. I think Steele missed the protection here, so he rushes the throw. But once again, his footwork is all off. And that was kind of the tale of the game for Mahomes, is that you had multiple snaps where even when the pass was completed, one example, there was a 3rd and 6 to Rice, where I think Chiefs fans will remember it. Rice made the catch. and he rolled to a first down.
Yeah.
That's great, but he had to really get low and scoop the ball up when there was no one near him. And that's kind of how Mahomes' day was. His very first throw to Rice was off target on a really cool Y leak concept that I haven't seen Reed use in forever. And he had so much space to run there. And Mahomes, he kind of dirted it. And maybe Rice could have caught it, but it was just a rough play. And so this has been really depressing, I imagine, for people. But it's kind of a good news, bad news thing in that, yeah, the bad news is our otherworldly quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. I haven't finished charting his snaps, but from all appearances, he was just way more inaccurate than he normally is. The good news is, that's not going to continue.
So a couple things, just to tack on to what you just said. Andy Reid did confirm in his presser that protection was missed on the interception. He didn't call out steal, but it looked like it was steal. And he said That's a touchdown if that blitz is picked up. We've also seen Mahomes make that throw, though, even with pressure bearing down on him. A buku amount of times. The throw you were talking about to Rice on the right side, I'll show the coach's film when I'm talking, but his foot, I don't know if it was the turf or what, but his foot, caused him to fall forward a little bit. It's, very awkward, but it's another weird footwork thing that we're talking about here. And this was all pretty early. I feel like second half looked better. They got Kelce involved a little bit, but you have Kelce in here even talking a tough drop. That's another one that stopped 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and short in the fourth quarter. Yeah.
Absolutely. The timing of mistakes matters so much. A drop on, on 1st and 10, that's a bummer. But a drop on 3rd and 2, especially when you are trying to run the game out. I think there was 11:36 left in the fourth here. They're up by 5. You've got a chance with a real nice, 7-minute touchdown drive here to end this game. And Kelce right here, and again, Simmons makes a great play on the ball. He punches it from behind. Kelce's made that catch a million times. And this is as good a time as any to tell people, I'm going to wait till after the Chargers game to do some kind of thorough Travis Kelce film review. A lot of people are asking questions. I would just say you can go back and look at the game logs from last year, and you can find some 2 or 3 game stretches where he wasn't as impactful as some certain things went wrong. He's had a really explosive play called back due to penalty. He's had a couple times he's been open and he hasn't been hit. Those things have happened. And then you've got this drop here. When I look at him on film, he doesn't look slower, doesn't look out of shape, doesn't look disinterested or whatever on film. He looks like himself. So my assumption is time's coming for him, but this was just a rough drop. And on 3rd and 2, that's, again, it's another drive killer. And that's that term drive killer is the one I really want to emphasize. They really were creating these unforced errors that were killing drives on crucial moments. And that includes the final play of the game, which has been the source of a lot of conversation with the incomplete throw to Xavier Worthy. I love this design, how it's drawn up, not how it was executed. So what you have here is a route combination that in theory should be strong against man or zone coverage. It's essentially like a mesh concept. Again, mesh, just guys running across the middle of the field and creating a mesh. Right? And that creates natural picks. But he's also got what should be, and it's Rashee Rice that should be running it, a deep crosser. And so when you combine those two concepts, the mesh, in theory, you've got Travis Kelce coming left to right. You've got Worthy coming right to left. Those guys should, in theory, pick any kind of man defenders and create some separation for themselves. Where I really love adding a crosser in there on a deeper level would be, even if it's zone, you create a layers concept where you're stressing the zone defenders to the left side of the field by saying, okay, do I take Rice deep? Do I take Worthy shallow? What do I do? In this case, if you were to ask me what coverage the Falcons are playing, I would say I'm not sure, because nobody follows Xavier Worthy. The coverage they played here was busted. And so what ends up happening here, you can actually kind of see a little bit, and it might be a little small for people to see. When he gets to his break, you can see Xavier Worthy looking at Rashee Rice. And this kind of all came out in the post-game presser. Andy Reid was quick to say, because a lot of people were killing Worthy after the game. Yeah. Oh man, the rookie. Well, and It doesn't help, and this is the power of being a broadcaster. And again, Collinsworth isn't in the huddle, so he doesn't know. So he's just doing his best guess. He thinks that, he's saying, it looks like Worthy saw no one followed him, so he's going to slow down, and that's the problem with sight adjustments. He's not wrong in a sense. Like, there are a lot of plays where that's the case. However, in this case, Reed's saying it wasn't Worthy who was wrong. He saw another guy running the wrong route, so he slowed down to stay out of his space. It's super clear that's Rashee Rice. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious. This mesh with a deep cross is something they've run before. And so, the bad news is it's a bummer that Rice created a mental error like that in a season where he's playing like a superstar. The good news is that you've got a rookie who is seeing the field well enough to, even though, maybe he did the wrong thing. I'm curious what the coaching point was Reed gave him. If it was, no, man, next time just keep running through it. When you're doing that kind of levels and they interfere, you just keep running in case Pat throws you the ball anyway, and it'll just be kind of a convoluted mess at that point. I think that would be the coaching point there, because otherwise you're stopping and then Mahomes throws, and then we all saw it looked weird. It looked like the ball slipped out of his hands or something. But I kind of like the fact that you've got a rookie who's seen the field well enough to mid-route see that someone else is in the same space as him, and for fear of dragging a defender into that space, holds up to give Mahomes a clear throwing lane. It didn't work out, and again, maybe people feel like that's reaching, but that's not easy to process in real time. And seeing Worthy do that, I find that encouraging, because it's demonstrative of an ability to see something going on and adjust to it. Now, was it right or wrong? I don't know. But I do know that that's a very, very fixable thing. The problem they had last year was that they had guys playing a ton of snaps who couldn't fix that. No matter how many snaps Kadarius Toney got, that wasn't getting fixed. With Sky Moore, who seems to know the entire offense, but some of the sight adjustment stuff, that didn't seem to get fixed. And you've got some physical limitations there. Whereas with Rice, very fixable. With Worthy, from all appearances, very fixable. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, very fixable. It's not the same problem as they were having at the beginning of last year, where it was just a talent issue. And that, to me, is pretty encouraging.
Yeah, from being able to talk with you and even just wondering if some of the red zone stuff, or even just the short yardage stuff, if they spread guys back out again in their formations, if that could potentially help fix things. And then combining that with just some of these little mistakes, like the Chiefs are still putting up I don't know how, it's like 23-ish points a game. I could be off, but they're top 8, I think, in the NFL right now in points per game. They're somewhere right around there, and they're still settling for field goals in the red zone. And then Mahomes is still throwing picks at times in the end zone. If it didn't happen with just Simmons, I feel like there was one more that happened in the red zone.
One, that downfield throw to Worthy.
Oh, yeah.
That downfield throw to Worthy, where one could argue Worthy needs to come back for it stronger, but one could also argue they had a ton of space to the right side of the field, and you got to let your burner run underneath it. They're still working on that.
So with those, a couple things being said, the kind of short distance woes, the red zone issues, okay, here's the thing, they're opting for 3 instead of 7 sometimes, and they're winning by a couple. So those points are enough, but it still puts a lot of stress on the defense to get it done at the end of the game. But when I hear you talk about it and kind of break it down, it seems like these are easily fixable. When you have a segment of people online saying the Mahomes Magic is gone, but you are looking through the film and kind of seeing this stuff, the blunt question I just have to ask you, is the Mahomes Magic gone with the average depth of target decreasing every year, the INTs going up, the mistakes and miscues and stuff like that? You're seeing this happen. It's only been 3 weeks, but is the Mahomes Magic gone at just 29 years old?
I would be shocked if he'd hit his peak at 28. Here's the long and short of it for Chiefs fans. This isn't the worst game and a half, 2-game stretch of Mahomes' career. If you go back and watch the Ravens game, he overall played a solid game. I would call it an above average game for him, which would be an awesome game for any other quarterback, right? Except maybe Josh Allen, who's playing at an unbelievable level right now, which is fun to watch. Cincinnati, he had several really horrific snaps, but overall was pretty accurate, did all right. Still a below average game for him. This Atlanta game, I think, was worse. But if you think about his worst stretches of football, that remains the 2021 season, where he played some absolutely brutal football in the middle of the season, which for I won't call you a conspiracy theorist if you believe like, oh, it's the Magic's gone without Tyreek Hill or the Magic's gone without Eric Bieniemy. Both of them were here in 2021, where they went through a brief stretch, and that was, well, the NFL has figured out Mahomes. It's all over. And then they had the best offense in the league in 2022. I personally think what's happened is you have defenses continuing to completely sell out. Not completely. It's not quite as bad as Alex or as Andy and Patrick are making it sound. It's not like Travis Kelce has 3 defenders on him all the time. But defenses are still paying a ton of attention to Travis Kelce. They haven't yet quite adjusted to the Chiefs offense running through Rashee Rice. I think they will eventually, because teams are going to get tired of Rice getting 100 yards on them week in and week out. But I think he is having to adjust his game to Worthy, who's a rookie, to running the offense through a receiver instead of Travis Kelce, to defense is paying so much attention to Kelce, trying to figure out how much trust he has in that left tackle spot, trying to get that stuff figured out. There's just variables here that he's trying to adjust to. And I think a lot of it in the long term, because 2022 went so well, and because Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS both played at a relatively high level when you look at their career averages at the same time, and Travis Kelce was just in the zone, the whole thing worked so well, and Isaiah Pacheco coming along as a rookie, that the Chiefs' shift of their offense really caught the league by surprise and helped them hide losing a guy that's going to probably go down as one of the greatest receivers in history. And so I think that set somewhat unrealistic expectations for 2023 and even 2024. Now, again, the film doesn't look the same way it looked in 2023. The thing that I'm going to be watching for, and we'll see what happens with the Chargers. I think you might be lining up at safety for the Chargers this upcoming Sunday. I'm not sure who, but here's one thing I will say: I fully expect, like, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would put like my life savings on the under in this game, because it's the exact type of game where the Chiefs win like 13-10 or something, like, or lose 13-10 because the entire Chargers roster is hurt. The big things, if you just take a look in terms of footwork and accuracy, and Mahomes talked about it right after the game, if those things are fixed, the Chiefs are probably putting up 30 a game right now. The problem has been primarily with Mahomes, with a couple of really bad decisions and some pretty tough throws. But if you go back and watch the first half, the first 3 quarters of that Ravens game, where he was just, to steal a phrase from Matty Lane, just throwing with his chest and firing dart after dart after dart, it's still there. You just need to see him slow down his process a little bit here. So that's a long road to a short thought that, no, I don't think the Mahomes magic is gone. That would be quite shocking. I don't know if we've ever seen a player peak at 28 as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, he did look like he was struggling after Trey Hendrickson kind of was causing him to see some ghosts. I feel like he was getting some flashbacks a little bit out there on the field. I can't confirm which snaps or anything like that, but Wanye he was serviceable. Be curious to see what the left tackle battle looks like moving forward. But then you combine that with, we didn't talk about it, it's not worth a big conversation because it was a big what if, but you combine that with the fact that they were probably going to run a lot of the offense through Hollywood Brown. At least that was like the thought. Yes. He gets injured on the first play of preseason, so they're actually now adapting without having one of the main weapons they prepared to have through at least the first 3 weeks of the season. I mean, you can't anticipate injuries, but they brought in Juju, but he's still being brought up to speed. Now Pacheco's on IR. They're constantly adapting and evolving, but I think the Hollywood Brown injury, it's a big what if, but I think that hurt too. You're putting a lot on Rice, and you're putting a lot on Worthy to kind of step up, and that's with Travis now. Like, teams aren't worried about Hollywood Brown. He's not out there. So they're like, okay, we'll just double or triple Trav when you need to, and then bracket Worthy or whatever. And I feel like it kind of docked the Chiefs' stats, I think, just with how they game planned against the Bengals. Like, they knew the interior D-line was really beat up, and they came in, we're like, we're going to run the ball. I mean, that's not the Chiefs. That's not their DNA, and I feel like that also kind of hampered the offensive stats a little bit if you look at it through 3 games. I'm not overly concerned. It doesn't seem like you are either. And as always, I appreciate, Seth, you taking the time. If you guys aren't subbed to Seth's Substack, I mean, this is great. He's putting out multiple articles a week, the Chief in the North newsletter, and it's not very expensive. I don't even remember how much it is, like at $12 a year with his discount code. He's also a very good follow on Twitter at RealMN Chiefs fan. He's got a link to his Substack. I mean, this guy is putting out a lot of thoughtful content. You're not afraid to talk about like some of the negative stuff you're seeing, but you do it respectfully, and then you're not afraid to let people know, hey, it's not as bad that as some people are making things seem based on what I'm seeing on the film. So I really appreciate about you, Seth, and I think you're one of the best follows out there because of it.
Well, I appreciate that. I have time to tell you a quick funny story. You'd mentioned that I try to do it respectfully when I talk about the negative stuff. That was a hard-learned lesson in my early years of doing this. I had written an article talking about a Chiefs player who was struggling a little bit. And I went on this big, long spiel about how bad he was against the run. And it was definitely a bit. And this is I'd only been doing this for about 2 or 3 years, maybe. And I was saying things, I don't want to say player X is bad, but, it was his job to stop Forrest Gump from running across the country. I don't want to say player X is bad, but if he were a country, he'd be France. And it was just this dumb, stupid, whatever bit that really went on, probably longer than it should have. And that article went up, and the next morning I woke up and this player's brother had sent me an email, and he was just really mad at me, understandably so. He was actually really nice about it overall, but he was just made it really clear, kind of like, hey man, what's your problem? And so ever since then, and I have not recently, just so Chiefs fans are aware, not for years. I have gotten a few of those DMs like, what's your problem? When I've written certain things. And so that really helped emphasize to me the humanity of the people we're writing about, because this person I was writing about is, just a person doing a job, maybe struggling a little bit, but didn't deserve me sitting there making fun of him, which is ridiculous. This is like a human who, if he'd wanted to, could, grab me by the leg and throw me around like I'm Loki and he's the Hulk. So I definitely shouldn't be doing that. But that's my fun story on that. That really taught me a lesson about you can say what you think you're seeing on film, and that is what it is, but I try not to come across a certain way. But anyway, that's a funny story I like sharing, because I just remember waking up and seeing the last name in the email and being like, oh no. And it was not fun.
Man, that's even now, you do it so politely. I feel like you break it down, and I'm still sure you get DMs from time to time of people who don't like it. But I mean, here's the thing: you can't win always, but I feel like you do try your best to be respectful about it, and it helps me think sometimes, because I troll pretty heavily online. But in my videos, when I actually talk on YouTube, I try to give a balanced take of sure, it could be this, but here's some positives too. I'm not always trying to just ream on somebody, especially for me, because I'm not a film guy. So I can only get so far into the weeds. But that's why we have you on the channel, man. And I appreciate you being on here. You were on a few weeks ago to chat, and I'm sure we'll have you back again when we've got something else to talk about, and as there always is in the kingdom. But just know I appreciate you, man. Seth, thanks so much for your time. And we'll do it again. Is there anything else you want to plug before we get out of here?
I just always have to say, you've plugged everything for me every time I appear anyway. I just always have to say thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully the next time we reconvene, the Chiefs are still undefeated or close to. So let's go.
Yeah, we're talking about the 100-point explosion against the Chargers.
Let's go. Come on, man.